Good morning. I really hope you had a fantastic weekend. I had a lovely weekend actually. The weather was fabulous, so I'm very grateful for that. And I'm ready to go for another week, so I hope you are feeling the same. Welcome to my Monday messages. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Rebecca. And I am a QTT personal development coach and mentor, as well as a homeopath. And I use all three methods to help you and your family to be as healthy and as happy as you can be and stay that way. So my Monday messages are really about helping you to be able to control your own inner world and how you feel and how you respond to any outside triggers or circumstances. So how I'm doing that, hopefully, is to share a view, a focus, a simple practice perhaps each week so that you can just instigate little changes on a daily basis that are actually going to accumulate and mean that you're actually making big changes in the way that you lead your life and the way that you feel about your life. So today's video is kind of part 3, I suppose, in a little mini series that I've been doing. And it's an accumulation of understandings. So in the first part, I asked you to try and practice accepting and acknowledging that we all have different views of the world, because we all have different experiences and we put different meanings and different values and different feelings on those experiences. And those are what really forms and drives our behaviour. So that was the first part. And I mean, again, just a reminder, just going back to that glass again, that glass half full or half empty. That's why some of us will see what is in essence the same view. However, we will experience it very differently. So some of us will see that glass as half full and some of us will see it as half empty. So if we accept that, the second part of the series was to then practice not being judgmental about people for having that different view, because we can never experience what they've experienced. We don't know what they've been through. We don't know why they've formed the views that they have formed. Good morning. Good morning, Anne. I'm just going to give you a wave. And good morning, Breed. You're very, very welcome. We are talking this morning about part 3 in my little mini video series that we're doing at the moment. And I'm just doing an assessment of where we are. So we've kind of accepted that others have a different view of the world because we've all had different experiences. Good morning, Breed. And we are now practicing not judging them for it. And what those things help us to do is kind of rise above being sucked into a sort of bit of a pointless battle in trying to prove whose view is more important or more valid than the other person's, because we've already accepted that there isn't any hierarchy really. One isn't more right than the other, and it isn't more wrong than the other either. They're just different. So that was what we talked about last week. Greetings from Dingle. Hello, Anne-Marie, and greetings from Killarney to Dingle. I was thinking about going to Dingle actually over the weekend, but I thought that was just maybe a bit too far at the moment. But anyway, I hope it's lovely down there. Yes, if we've accepted that we all have different views, we don't know how those views have been formed, so we're not really in a position to judge them. and also that there isn't really a value system attached. So what we're doing is separating, which we talked about last week, we're separating people's actions and behaviours from them as people, and that was a key part of last week's video, really. So we're able to say, okay, I'm not mad about the behaviour, but that doesn't mean I'm going to, in the case of a parent to a child, doesn't mean to say that I'm going to stop loving you as a person. That every kind of behaviour or action, if you like, is a learning experience. And if we're able to not get sucked into someone else's stuff, then we have a better chance of actually connecting with them, and we have a better chance of feeling better ourselves. Anne-Marie, you're saying Ali Welfare. Is Ali Welfare, you're tagging? Internet cut off there. So it's still very windy here, so our internet connection is a little bit patchy. So I hope it's okay. Anyway, if it isn't, if I'll reconnect as soon as I can. Okay, so good morning to everybody, and you're all very, very welcome. So today I want to talk about sort of going a bit deeper into using those thoughts. So that thought of not judging people, that we all have different views, and that we're not going to get sucked into arguing about it and having a sort of value argument, if you like. And what that actually means is that we have, apart from anything else, we have better control over the way that we interact with people. So rather than reacting, which my own view of a reaction is a kind of uncontrolled, subconscious, knee-jerk response, which is usually triggered by some kind of hurt or pain or vulnerability in ourselves. And that can in turn trigger the other person, and it all gets messy and pointless, and we end up, both of us, feeling awful. So off again there, so apologies for that. If we can change our own perception in different circumstances, then we can actually change our world. Because we're changing our internal world, and that's really ultimately all we can control quite often. So changing the way we feel about different circumstances actually has a massive effect, because we will start noticing different things. Our bodies will behave differently. If we think about that glass of water again, if the person who is seeing as half empty, that's their view of the world, and they're noticing all the things that are lacking, all the things that are missing. And I'm going to add here, there's no judgment in this, because there's actually appropriate, positive applications of that view, actually. But if it's not making them feel good, if they're actually just feeling all the time that something is missing, that something is lacking, adopting the practices on a daily basis that help that person to change that view a little bit, once they've accepted that there is a different view and that there's no judgment attached to either view, the glass is both half empty and it's half full, neither is more true than the other, then you can just gently start practicing introducing a different viewpoint of anything, actually. Good morning, Nicola. I'm going to give you a little wave there. And also good morning, Jenny. You're all very welcome, and some of you will be very familiar with what I'm talking about. But I'll give you an example. When we first moved here, which was many years ago now, my son was quite young, and he had started school in London, quite a big school. I think he'd been there not even a full academic year when we moved, or maybe it was a full year. And then when we came here, we enrolled both the children, my son and my daughter, in a very small local village school. So very different to what they had experienced in London. And the move was, it was a big change for all of us, really, moving from a very big city and from everything that was familiar about that and moving to a rural environment. So my son, to cut a long story short, he wasn't happy in school at all. He thought that, he felt completely different. He felt like he stuck out like a sore thumb, that he wasn't comfortable, that everybody was judging him, that he felt bullied, wasn't familiar obviously with the teachers or with the way that the school ran in general. And we were very concerned about him, actually. And a lot of our friends said, well, move schools, just move schools. Obviously, it's not the right school for him. And because I hadn't done any of this kind of work at the time, I listened to that. And although we tried for another, I think it was another few months, another year, could have been, I don't know. We eventually then moved him to a bigger school further into Killarney. Very good school, actually. And guess what happened? Well, Owen felt exactly the same. It didn't help at all. And that's when we started actually looking a little bit deeper and talking to him better. And we were able to access more help from the school. And we actually got to the bottom of what the real issue was, which was that he was feeling uncomfortable and, out of place because it was all new. And part of my son's kind of makeup, if you like, is that he needs a long time to transition. He needs a long time to get used to new things. So we took that into account, and actually I prescribed homeopathic remedies at the time as well. But also we realised that he was struggling because he was struggling academically in terms of he was manifesting signs of dyslexia. And he felt in his London school that because he was familiar with what was going on and all the people in the school, that he could kind of cover that up. He could cover up the fact that he was struggling. And he couldn't do that when he was in a small environment. And when we understood that, we could get him the help that he needed, number one, but also we could explain to him that was why he was feeling so unsettled, that actually that's not what people were thinking at all, that nobody was judging him, that we're all different, all of those things. And he started to very quickly understand that he was actually going to get a lot more help and support than he would have got in his old school in London. And from that point onwards, he started to connect with people. He started to understand that actually a lot of the other kids were really curious about him. They weren't focusing on his perception of his negative parts. They were actually really interested in him, and they were interested to talk to him and find out about London and about him. So his whole perception changed. And in hindsight, he could have done that, or we could have helped him to do that in his old school. So we kind of knee-jerked a bit and changed. We thought that by changing the circumstances, it would change how he felt, but it didn't. It didn't change until we understood that how he felt was how he felt, and that was going to be the case no matter what the circumstances. So that's what I'm trying to get at, really, is just understanding that in any situation, if you can just change it around. So if you feel that you're being triggered into some kind of pattern that is negative for you, that brings up feelings of frustration, annoyance, anger, sadness, anything at all, I would urge you to first of all just stop and notice it, because it's really important that we notice when we're being triggered and how we're being triggered. And often we can feel that physically, if we stop and allow ourselves to just take a breath and feel, we can feel whereabouts in our body we're feeling those feelings. So that's a good, useful thing to notice. And I can talk more about that next time. So notice what your triggers are. And once you start noticing them, you'll become more aware of when they happen. And that will therefore allow you to actually take that pause that is necessary at the moment while you're becoming conscious of them, if you like. So once you've done that, just ask yourself, well, okay, is there a different way that I can look at this situation, whatever it is? And you can, good morning, Nicola, and good morning, Harriet. Harriet's saying, or I read from a poet that the glass is refillable. Yes, absolutely, Harriet, absolutely. Because, nothing is constant. That's a good response. So, yes, what was I saying? To come back to thinking about how you can turn things on their head. So how you can just think about, because you've already accepted there are different views of virtually every situation. So what else could you choose to focus on in any given situation? So, at the moment it might be lots of little things. It might be, oh my God, the dishwasher is not loaded in an efficient, productive way. And if that sends you off into a tailspin, how about just stopping and going, wow, the dishwasher's been loaded. Fantastic. No, I know that, but if you can turn things around so that if your tendency is to go into a tailspin when things aren't done, maybe just understanding that because the other people in your family do not have the same view as you, they do not focus on the same things as you do. The things that you find important, they don't necessarily, and the things that they find important, you don't necessarily. So actually the fact that you can both come together and recognise that a dishwasher needs to be loaded and that's going to help everybody is fab. So that's a start. You can use it on all those little things that mount up and can actually make you feel resentful, angry, nobody's doing anything the way I want it to do. Whatever it triggers for you, just if you give yourself that kind of breath to think, okay, where is this going to go if I pursue this view and my old pattern, the stuff that I'm being triggered into doing or saying or whatever behaviour, where is it ultimately going to lead me? And do I want it? Do I want that outcome? If I don't, if the answer is no, I don't, then we need to actually interrupt the process right at the beginning and do it a slightly different way. So that's kind of what I'm urging you to do this week, really, is to just practice that. And it does take practice. There are some things that I have managed to completely change the way I feel about. And there are other things that still come up and trigger me. So it's a work in progress, like everything. But it just means that you're much more able to control how you respond to situations rather than going into a sort of knee-jerk, unconscious pattern. If you can interrupt those patterns and just examine them a bit and ask them, are they serving you? Then the chances are that you can change them and you can change your whole world. There's good examples of, when you're thinking about something that you want to buy or that you want to achieve, that you want to, I'm trying to think of a good example, or a car is a good example. Let's say if you've decided that you want to buy a new car and the colour you've decided on is white, let's say. Well, the chances are that every time you go out, you're going to notice white cars because that's where your mind is, that's where your focus is. And it's not that there are any more white cars on the road, it's just that that's where your focus is. And that's really what I'm asking you to practice this week, is to just try and consciously shift your focus to something that is more fruitful, more positive, that's going to make you feel good, and it's actually going to enable you to interact with the people around you in a much more positive, nurturing way. So I hope that makes sense. I feel it will to most of you, actually. But it just takes a bit of conscious effort sometimes to actually put it into practice. So, any questions or observations? They are very, very welcome. I mean, obviously, at the moment, we're in one big test for our individual views, if you like. There are lots of different views about what's going on at the moment and why we're in this situation, and all of that, and what's going to happen when we come out of it. And I think my own view, I've formed my own view of what's going on, and I am just watching at the moment. I'm choosing not to keep feeding my own particular view because I've formed it, and I sort of don't need to keep feeding it. I will always be open to new information or new views. However, sometimes if you overfeed something, it will tip the balance and you will go somewhere that you don't necessarily want to go. I hope that makes sense. Talking about the current situation, one of my triggers would be feeling that I am being controlled by somebody whose viewpoints and whose values are not congruent with my own. I mean, that's probably everybody's triggers, actually, but in a wider global sense. So we all know there's lots of stuff online at the moment, and some people would dismiss that as conspiracy theories, and some people would be taking it on board lock, stock and barrel. And I am choosing to watch all of it at the moment. As I say, I've chosen my own viewpoint. If I were to go down the route of engaging and being whipped up by the viewpoints that are challenging current government's behaviours, if you like, then I could easily get tipped into feeling quite angry, quite powerless, victimised, out of control, that I have no power, that I have no control. And that, if you think about it, actually is the same result as if I actually chose to take the prevalent viewpoint, the government viewpoint, that we're all to remain inside for our own safety, and that we have no control over our health, and that we need to be fearful, we need to not interact with other people, all of those, they're kind of ending up in the same place for me. So I don't want to be in that state. So I'm being very careful about managing the information that I choose to take in and how much of it and the manner in which it's being delivered. So just be mindful about that kind of thing, about feeding whatever triggers you. So that's it. Nicola is saying, so much sense. Think practice is the key. Can't change if you don't practice, as you're always going back to the old thoughts. Yes. The thing is, Nicola, I have found this, that you do in the beginning, you do have to practice quite a lot. And actually everything that's given to us, I think, is an opportunity to practice or to learn or to tweak, to enhance something that we've already learned. And the more we do that, the less practice we have to do in a way, because the practice becomes, it starts off quite wide in that we have to kind of do it with everything. And then it filters down and we find that actually we're getting to the root of the real trigger. And that is something that we can, as you know, Nicola, we can work on at a much, much deeper level. So we're kind of, it's a bit like homeopathy for me, in that we're treating people and ourselves, firstly from a wide outside sense, if you like, energetically. We're getting rid of all the stuff that's around the edges, and we're gradually working our way inwards so that we can get to the real core issues. And then we can work out what's the best way to actually tackle those and change them. And sometimes actually massive parts of those really deep core things do actually go. They're shifted by these little outside practices. And that's the same with remedies, as you know. And Harriet is saying, yes, I agree completely that when we tip into reactivity, it's all the same, fear and anger. We can respect difference. Yeah, totally. And often people don't understand that they think that by maybe not accepting the government dictates, if you like, that, they are being true to themselves and they are being... they're not giving their power away. However, you can hold your views, you can hold very different views without becoming emotionally triggered into something that is actually going to mean that if you do enter into a debate with somebody with different views, that you're very unlikely to get the other person to come on board with your view, if that's what you're trying to do, because all they'll hear is your anger and your frustration and your all your judgment goes out the window, basically. So absolutely, Harriet, and I hope, Nicola, that I kind of answered your semi-question there. Good morning, Chiara. We're just coming to the end, actually. So yeah, I hope that that's helpful. It is a work in progress. I mean, I think it's something we will always continue to be conscious of, and and just know that it will we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and we will be affecting everybody around us, not just ourselves, because we're shifting our energy, we're shifting ourselves at a cellular level too, because every time we're able to look at something more positively and not feel that we're angry or disappointed, anything like that, then we're releasing hormones in our body that help us, they support us to feel good about whatever the situation is or about ourselves. So every time we are shifting our conscious mind we're also shifting our subconscious mind, and we're also shifting the way that our bodies work. So we're working really holistically, actually, by just starting at the outside and allowing that to filter through. So I hope that makes sense, and thank you so much for joining me. Have a fantastic Monday and a fantastic week. And Harriet's saying thank you, Rebecca, and have a lovely day. You too, Harriet. I hope it's sunny where you are. It's sunny and very windy here. But I'll take it. As long as it's not pouring with rain, that's fine by me. So if there's any requirement you think anybody watching, if you're watching on replay or anything like that, you have any questions, any comments, do post them and I'll get back to you. And if you think you need any help or support doing this kind of work, or working with homeopathy, which is kind of the same work but different method, and they work beautifully together, then do pop to my website, and the address is in the post, and you can have a look at the information on there. If you still have questions, then do register for a free chat with me, and we can talk about how I might be able to help you. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your week. Bye.